Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Political Activation. I'm your host, and today I'm going to be talking about the destruction of democratic ideals. Today in society, there are a lot of people talking about the destruction of democratic ideals. Those ideals are usually truth, speaking freely, freedom of speech, First Amendment, the Bill of Rights, the many of the constitutional rights that everybody has, the Constitution of Liberty, all different types of things that create a commonality beside many of the people that, reside in any living space or reside in any area or community. Now, these are really important ideals, and it seems that our societal attention span is becoming very low and super ignorant, and that's a bad thing. And as a result of the low attention span, we have a destruction of democratic ideals. And we need democratic ideals because democratic ideals create a free society in which everybody is able to express their ideas and express their speech in a way that is according to themselves and is true to themselves, in a way that they are allowed to facilitate, friendships among other people, relationships among other people, and just be able to express themselves in a way that doesn't really harm anybody. It just simply gives them the opportunity to be themselves. Now, when it relates to the way of the current political climate, the Republicans seem to want to destroy a lot of the democratic ideals that are held by the Democratic Party. The reason, the intentions behind that, I don't know, but they just seem to be opposed to truth. They don't seem to like truth that much, and they stand for an anti-establishment type of value system and value structure. And the Republican Party is typically on the side of the status quo, and they want to keep things the same. Democrats want to usually create change and progress forward and move forward in a way that's positive for the economic system as well as the political system. Bernie Sanders exemplifies that notion in a way that obviously is superbly intelligent. Even if you look at some of Bernie Sanders' earlier works and legislation that he passed, he was super progressive. Of course, being an independent candidate, he was progressive for a reason, and that served him well in politics. And so Bernie Sanders is just one example, but there are so many other examples of progressive candidates, even during the 2020 election, or the 2020 presidential election, where there was so many progressive candidates. There were a lot of Democrats that were running against Joe Biden, Joaquin Castro, other people, a lot of congressmen that were running for president in 2020. Bernie Sanders was one of them too. Elizabeth Warren was one of them too. And they run on these platforms that were really interesting at the time and kind of created history in a way that the progressive movement changed for the better, in my opinion. However, the progressive movement is just one movement of a large majority of people that believe in another movement or in many other movements, plural, which are used to persuade other people to do something that they want to do, but not necessarily to persuade them in any sort of way, but they usually are used to just facilitate the ongoing discussions and moderate the discussions that are happening around the country in public discourse. Even in universities, of course, universities play a huge role in the public discussion and the public opinion. But most of them are liberals, and most university students are liberals and Democrats until typically when they graduate college is when these students become Republicans and conservatives, but that's just a trend that we see. But of course, universities are liberal institutions, um, and that isn't surprising at all. But it's just sad that we see a lot of destructions of democratic ideals and democratic value structures, and it's very bad that we see a lot of people's attention spans being cut short, and it's just a bad overall circumstance. This seems like a downward spiral in a negative sense, and we probably won't see any new changes anytime soon with regard to the democratic ideals at large, unless something massive happens at a large scale of the political system. There has to be a fundamental change within the political system for anything to really happen in terms of politics in Congress. But without any groundbreaking changes, without any groundbreaking news coverages or radical differences among the party systems, then it's going to continue to stay the same. We're going to have those two parties fighting for control in the Senate, in the House, over the next upcoming election in 2022 and 2024. And it's simply a terrible scenario. And, I think it would be a much better scenario to have, 3 or 4 or maybe even 5 different parties, systems that people can vote for. But the reason why these voting systems exist these political systems exist, these political parties exist is for voters, and for voters to create their preference for their party systems within the government. When people are running for office and whatnot, there are so many ways to vote in terms of preferences. Does my candidate prefer cutting taxes? Does my candidate prefer a clean climate industry or a clean climate change? Does my candidate oppose capitalism? Is my candidate against basic things like littering, maybe regular things? Is my candidate against, let's see, paying for roads? Is my candidate against education in any way? Is my candidate against the regular worker or anything related to those lines? But those are important questions to ask after when voting, simultaneously when voting for a specific candidate, and those are great questions to ask. And the reason those parties exist is to just make it easier for people to see which candidate or which party system each candidate belongs to, and therefore knowing exactly which party to vote for or which candidate to vote for based on these parties that we know the values of. Obviously, they're distinct and they're different parties, but they are similar in many ways too. But the destruction of democratic ideals is prevalent in society. It's been prevalent since 2020, since COVID started. And I don't see it going away anytime soon, especially with the use of the rampant use of social media as a means to discuss topics that aren't so scientific and aren't so intelligent, possibly even harmful, and therefore we're going to see more of those topics being discussed without any regard to educational institutions and scientific data behind it. And that's totally up to the people who are in charge of creating discourse among the institutions and the discourse among the populace. But definitely it is at the cause of one person. It's a collective thing where everyone chooses to discuss a thing or discusses to choose another thing and creates a discourse around it, based upon the strength of that idea as a prominent idea, or as a little idea that may just fade away into the realm of wrong ideas. But we won't see that. We won't know that until it actually occurs, and until people realize these ideas are real and these ideas are critical for the structure of the country and critical for the well-being of the nation. I don't think we're going to see any recovery of these ideals, unless the recovery of the ideals comes from a Democratic president like Joe Biden. So I mean, he has a way of doing this in a way that can exemplify these democratic ideals. But right now, as it currently stands, we don't have those ideals. So I just wanted to get that across to the media, and thank you all for watching. Have a great day. Bye.